Hi, I'm Tim Brown, Vice President of Security for SolarWinds. So I've been doing security for a long time, probably about 20, 25 years almost. And we've seen a lot of changes. I've had opportunities to do many different things in my career. I've worked with and met with, probably 1,000 CISOs and IT teams around the globe. I've worked with governments. I've worked with, institutions, large and small. I've designed security systems. I've built products. I've done a lot of different things, give me a lot of different background on, where security is, where security is going. I've also really been a thought leader. I've had 18 patents on security-related topics. I've invented a lot of things. I've done a lot of thinking about where we should go and what we should do. Prior to joining SolarWinds, I was with Dell. I was one of 7 Dell Fellows. I purposely took my position at SolarWinds so that I could run an IT operations team, also run a strategy team, also help everybody kind of move forward in security. So that's what we're always looking at. Right now, if you look at where we are, we're going to talk about one of the biggest problems that we face today, and that is how we can get our teams to work together. IT and security often are at odds. When we look at DevOps and security, at odds. And how can we even out that? How can we even out those problems and make things better? First off, what's been going on in the security landscape is super interesting. And when we look at that, we've got a lot of challenges. Anytime we have change, anytime we have change in an organization, change in a structure, we have everybody working from home now. We have whole different business models going. We have companies that are going through major changes on how they implement, how they have people, where people are working, what operations they have. And with those changes become more risk. And each company needs to look at what that risk has affected and where that risk is going. Our adversaries are also taking a big advantage of that risk. We see huge increases in phishing. We see huge increases in attacks. We see big, important things going on in the outside world that affect the security of our companies. Because essentially the adversaries are looking to pick up botnets, looking to increase their reach. They're looking to really kind of increase their focus to affect change. And when you look at the risk landscape, you have to consider the second half of 2020 is really going to be an increased risk level. So what do you do on an increased risk level? You get the basics right. You start with the basics, you move forward. You make sure that you have controls. You make sure that you have tightened down wherever you can tighten down. You make sure your access controls are in place. You make sure that your teams are working well together. Now, as we come out of COVID and out of our current environment, you're going to see some companies survive. You're going to see some companies thrive. You're going to see some companies end up going out of business. And those that thrive, those that survive, those that really take advantage of new opportunities are those that are going to embrace new business models. Those that are going to embrace new ideas of how to do business. And part of that is, the last digital revolutions that we've had have taken years. We're looking through an evolution now that's taking months. And if you look at the companies that are doing well right now, those are companies that have embraced remote models. Those are people that have, embraced takeout food. Those who have embraced telemedicine. Those that have embraced remote working. Those teams and those companies are thriving right now. So we need to make sure that we are not a barrier. So that means both the IT people, that means the security people. We need to move fast. In order to move fast, we need to make sure we come together. We need to make sure that we are not our own enemy in this. We need to make sure that we are efficient as possible. So is the conflict real, right? Is there really a conflict between IT and security? And as I said, I've talked to, hundreds, thousands of different IT departments in my career. And I wish I could tell you that, no, the conflict's all fake, right? That doesn't exist. But there's always some level of conflict. There's never no conflict whatsoever. I've had CISOs tell me that the first thing they do is start with no. Right? That's the first thing they always start with. They say, yep, if I ever say yes to the business, then we just start from the wrong place, that we just don't go forward. I've had others tell me that, other IT leaders tell me, well, yeah, we just try to ignore security. We ignore it. We wait till the last minute. We bring them in before they have any time to change anything. So we try to make them less disruptive as possible. So we just don't involve them at all. Both of those things are so completely wrong, right? They disrupt business. They make us so that we're insecure. They make us so that we can't get our work done. They make it so that there's an adversarial model between the two groups. And every time you have adversarial models, you have chaos. And that chaos causes trouble. That chaos causes inefficiencies. That chaos makes things so that you aren't efficient. And just as I said before, we, in the next couple years, the next 6 months, the next year, we need to be as efficient and as secure as possible. Security will still be a huge concern. Efficiency in our kind of next wave of evolution is going to even be more critical. So how do we dissolve some of these conflicts? How do we make them better, right? And we're going to talk about kind of 4 ways that we can dissolve some of the conflict. The first, goals and priorities. How do we set goals and priorities appropriate? How do we make sure that we're talking about them in the right way? Tools, technologies, and terminology. Each of those, if they're not equal, if they're not working together, if you're not communicating well together, you're going to have problems. Processes and policies. And finally, one of the biggest one is people. We're really going to address where the people come into the mix. So, one of the first things we want to talk about is goals and priorities. The goals and priorities are often different between the security team and other teams, right? So when you look at our goals for security, it is really, our overall goal is to make everything 100% secure. Right? But in reality, we never get there, right? The only secure machine is a machine you unplug and drop at the bottom of the ocean. Then you have true 100% security. But that's not what we can really do, right? So, the goals for IT is to get things done, is to really move forward. The goals for DevOps, same idea, get things done, move things forward. But security's goals are to sometimes, make things secure as we are going along. And that's really what we have to think about. So we have different primary goals, and that's okay, right? When you think about how teams work, they should have different primary goals. And those goals are not necessarily conflicting, they're just different primary goals. So as teams work together, think about your security as an extension to your team with a primary goal of making things secure. Now, are they being practical doing it? That's the big question. And that's what we have to focus on is, hey, let's make it practical. Let's make it actionable. Let's make it so security is embedded into the system as early as possible so that it doesn't affect our efficiency. It doesn't affect our overall program, but we get security in first, we get moving forward, we actually make a big difference so that we don't get things that are unsecure out of the back end. So whether that's a IT program, whether that's an engineering and a product, whether that's a operations program, think about security as you go in and think about security as a component to it. The goals are different. Goals are different per team, but that's okay. Just embrace that difference. And really understand that, although the goals are different, our goals are the same in many ways. Our goals are the same to be able to make sure the company is secure, to make sure the company makes money, to make sure that we are achieving our goals in an effective time. So one of the ways that we can really do that is to combine our tools, our technology, our terminology, so that everybody understands what is most important. If everybody understands those things from a technology and tools perspective, we become efficient. So for example, how do you communicate? right? When you think about how you communicate in your team, if the engineering team is using Slack, then guess what? Security team better be on Slack. If they're using Teams, better be on Teams. If they're using email, you better be on email. But decide on platforms. Decide on platforms to communicate with. Embrace those platforms and embrace them for the entire team. Don't have one team off on an island doing something different. Make each of the teams kind of work together on things. One of the big things we have that's sometimes different is we use different terms. Some things that we just think are simple and easy. I threw out a term a while back. I just said, we're running our DLP program, right? And I just happened to ask in the room of engineers, who knows what DLP is? And looked around and it was like, well, nobody, right? Data leakage protection. So understand that people don't necessarily have the same background. Understand that that background can create conflict, can create information flow that doesn't happen, can create basically barriers to efficiency. So watch the terminology that you're utilizing and make sure the people in the room understand it. Watch your acronyms. One of the guys on my team from ex-military, he uses acronyms for everything. I think he's got a 3-letter acronym, for you name it, it's there. And I have to say, hey, what does this mean, right? What does this mean? So it happens in every group, it happens in every team. But the better terminology you have, the better consistency you have, the better that you end up communicating and working together. Other technology that comes into place is how you track things, how you understand things, how you prioritize things. The more standards that you can use, the better. Today for issues, for security things, we track via Jira, we score everything with a CVSS score, which is a common standard way of scoring things. So the more standards you can use, the less knowledge transfers you need to do. So tools, technology, terminology, extremely important when you build a team between security and IT. Get those right and it'll absolutely help you build a cohesive team. Next one, policies, processes, and programs. As an engineer, programs do not come to mind for me naturally, right? I don't track programs very well. I have to learn to track programs. But I absolutely 100% appreciate programs, tracking programs, what they accomplish, what they do. And I tell my program manager, boy, I love what you do. It's what I hate to do, right? I really do. And she is wonderful. She tracks things. She keeps things on track. She moves us forward. She makes sure that the ideas that we have don't just stop with ideas, but they follow up with actions. So ideas are fine, but they need action. Action takes programs. Actions takes policy. Actions takes procedures to be followed. The more consistent you are with tracking those programs, the more open you are with tracking those programs, the more visible those programs are, the more efficient things happen. Then you think about standards. Okay, well, every program we should have has a security section. Every standard security section has a risk assessment. They have a final security review at the end of the program. So build up your standards around how you want to run programs and make them consistent. Once those consistent, you're going to put your teams together. Those teams will start working more closely. They'll start developing relationships. They'll figure out that, hey, security is not that so far off from IT, or not so far off from engineering, or not so far off from DevOps. That team is what will make you efficient. That team, as we said before, is critical to our success, is critical for us moving fast and making things secure. So think about from the program perspective, be consistent, be active in how you're going to do things. People, the last topic here. You have to realize that people are different. And people that get into the security field really do have a reason to get in the security field. Some things that I look for people in security. Are you a lifetime learner? Are you always willing to take a challenge? Are you always willing to look at what is happening? Do you love to investigate? Do you love to try to stay ahead of an adversary? Do you love to kind of fight with an adversary and see where you can go? Do you think like an adversary? Do you go into a room and say, hey, how could I break into this room? Do you walk through a door and say, wow, that's insecure, I could get through that? Do you walk into a system? Do you run an application and say, hey, this is where it's facing risk? So it's a different mentality from a security perspective than from other disciplines. It just is. I have, friends that say that, yeah, I always sit on the subway car that has, the exit window built into the car. I always sit with my back face to the wall in case a fire occurs so I can get out fast. I always look when I come into an environment how I could break into this point of sale terminal. We think differently, right? Now, is that wrong? No, it's just different, right? And some of my best development buddies, right, what they're doing is thinking, hey, how can I develop this securely? How can I develop this efficiently? How can I get it out fast? How can I make it efficient? How can I use the least cycles? How can I make it the best program it can to meet the needs, right? How can I do this from an IT perspective too, right? Efficiency becomes more important than security. Performance becomes more important. Cost becomes more important. So just recognize people are looking at things from a different lens and a different perspective. Neither perspective is wrong. But what you need to do is understand that their perspectives are different, embrace those perspectives, and not discount them, right? Realize that your security guy's brain is somewhere, and your IT guy's brain is somewhere else. And when you come together, recognize the fact that those brains are different and their motivations are different. If you start at that realization, then you can start, again, building up that efficient team and really make progress towards the efficient, well executing, and secure result that you guys are looking for. So think about that and really make sure you understand. So goals and priorities, tools, technology, terminology, process, people, all play a role. So let's look at a few more things that you can do to really help the team's efficiency and helping the teams work together. First off, think about security as early in a cycle as you can. Involve the security team, involve your security folks. Don't hide from them. Very often what we see is programs occur and you put security at the end so they don't have time to make an effect or don't have time to cause you trouble. Please be inclusive on those. Because again, we can't have solutions, we can't have programs, we can't have anything launched that's not secure. As I said in the beginning, our security landscape continues to shift, our risk continues to shift, so it is critical that we have secure solutions. So that's number one. Number two, stop talking about security and start talking about risk. Now, it is, sounds like a simple concept, but whenever I talk about security, somebody says, hey, am I secure? And I always say, nope, I just walked in the room. You can't be secure anymore, right? It's talking about risk, right? What does that mean? That means we accept the fact that we are going to accept some risk. So risk can be business risk can be operational risk can be program risk, but all of those risks come into play. So measure risk and quantify risk and always talk about risk, not am I secure or not. So risk, another second one. If processes are inefficient, please speak up. As I said, we're going through an evolution. That evolution is going to be difficult. That evolution is going to take new ideas. That evolution is not going to be, simple, right? We've got to transform a majority of our businesses in the next 6, 9, 12 months. We need to reimagine what they look like. And those companies that do that reimagination, those companies that change their way of doing business will be those companies that thrive. So in order to do that, we need ideas from everyone. We really do. We need people to speak up. We need them to say, hey, this is inefficient. Here's how it can be fixed. So if you're a manager of people, encourage your people to speak up. If you're an individual, Speak up when you see something that's inefficient, that could change, or something that's insecure. Don't be afraid to speak up and tell people that, hey, we've got some problems here and we can be better, right? Because our goals are the same. Our goals are to make the best things that we can in a team that is efficient and working well. Next one is understand the business, right? And it's so important that when you look at risk, it's business risk. When you communicate risk, it's business risk. When you think about how you're going to be effective and efficient between security and other organizations, it has to be focused on the business. So understand the business, learn how your products, how your solutions, how your programs affect the business. But everything needs to go back to the business. Whether it's just a technical routine somewhere in the operation, still goes back to how does this fit in the business? So understand the business, take that into account. The more understanding of the business you have, the more impact that you can have in the overall company and the overall program. Finally, these new opportunities are going to require a lot of thought. And thinking is not necessarily one of those things that we have been focused on. Somebody once said, hey, what happens if my boss comes in, I have my feet up on my desk and he says, what are you doing? I'm thinking. Well, how would that go, right? Well, why aren't you doing something? Why are you just thinking, right? Somebody told me a story of they took over a team at IBM. And they said, yep, they were walking through the office and this guy just sat there for 5 days straight, had his feet up on his desk, and he was just kind of sitting there. And so he said, so what's up with this guy? Well, last time he got his Nobel Prize, he sat there for 6 months with his feet up on the desk. So they said, okay, we'll let him put his feet up on the desk and keep thinking. But in general, thinking is not as rated as what it should be. We need people to be thinking. We need people to be addressing what they're doing. Very often we rush to action before we fully think. So thinking is an important component for how we embrace this new normal. It's an important component of how we embrace teams working together. So don't be afraid to spend some time thinking and not just doing. And that's both from the security folks and the IT folks. I think if we take all these lessons, I think we will really have an opportunity to work better together, to be efficient, and to really move forward as a unified teams. So thank you for all your time. I really appreciate it, and have a great day.